Okay, we're going to get started. This is our report on data and reporting, faculty activity, research expenditures, all that kind of interesting stuff. So we'll get started by walking you through. The first slide is about what we're going to talk about here today. Proposal activity, the in-progress report that we get sent out every Friday. That gets sent out every Friday afternoon. That shows the ones you're actively working on. In KC, you can find old proposals or pending proposals. There's a lot of ways, but any proposal you do should be searchable in KC. Any award progress and where to look for that information, and then any aggregate reports for PIs, like your Form D and your research expenditure FAIS reports, things like that. I'm Rebecca from DER. Sorry about that. Hi. Okay, so let's move on to the in-progress report. Should look somewhat familiar. We send this out every Friday. And this pulls from our ticket system database where we, which is proposals that we're actively working on. So this is if you think you have one that you know is due soon, or that you know you're working on, or that you've submitted a PPF for, this is where you'd find this information. And it's going to have your due date, your status, you know, where the budget, if the budget's been approved, if the proposal's been submitted. Yes.
So we've never received a report, but I know that we have proposals pending.
Pardon me?
We've never received this
Okay.
in our department, but
Okay.
can I check with you later to make sure that we're on the list?
Yeah.
So this report goes to the engineering leadership team, OSP, and there's also a link in the DER newsletter. Do you receive the DER newsletter?
Yes.
So in the top of the DER newsletter, there is a link. We've been including it for about 6 months now. So
Perfect.
it's in the DER newsletter, and we do have. If you don't get the DER newsletter, please let us know.
No,
I didn't get the report.
Yeah, I thought it's like I think out with the report. No, I have gotten this.
It's
If it's in
It's
there, I have
in
to
the
get it.
DER newsletter, and we do, because it has proposal, it has sponsor names on it, and it has faculty names on it, we have it behind the secure part of the DER website.
That makes sense.
So
Thank
the
you.
report is for everybody, not just your specific.
Correct. The
Correct.
report is everything that DER is currently working on. And for example, right now, last week, I think it was about 78 proposals or so. What we'd like everyone to see is we get that last minute request. Can you just work on my proposal? It's due on Friday, today's Thursday.
Yeah.
And what we would like everyone to know is last Friday, you could have looked at the in-progress report and said, oh, DER is working on 40 proposals. They can probably get this in. They only have a few due next week. Oh, DER is working on 120 proposals with 20 due on Friday. They likely cannot get my proposal in and out within 2 days. So it is available, and if you can't get to the link or you're not getting the newsletter, please let us know.
Thank you.
Am I being loud enough for the Zoom people? We have Zoom. We're trying to improve our Zoom session, so please let us know if you have any issues. Sorry, Rebecca.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Okay, and so she said it's on the newsletter and it's behind a where you have to log in with your MSU Net ID and password. So that is the in-progress report. Next is searching proposals in KC. So this is what the KC main page looks like. We talked about this a little bit at our last seminar. So there's a lot of different numbers you can search by. You probably hear us talk about PD a lot. So the search proposals is where you can search by PD number. And we also have search institutional proposals, and you can search by your awards too. You can look by your awards as well. But PD, that's the number we work with a lot, and so this is where you can search for PDs. If you have that number, it's in the subject of every email that we send out regarding a certain proposal in our ticket system. And so the next screen is what the proposal search looks like. So if you do click that search proposal button, you will see the proposal number, which is the PD, the proposal document number, PD. And so that's where you will search from, and that's the results you'll get. If you're searching by a particular number, you should only get the one result, and that's what it'll look like. You're going to edit it, you can view it, copy the proposal, we'll get into those tabs. But this just shows some basic information, the funder, the title, the proposal state, approval pending, who the principal investigator is, things like that. So that is how you search, and if you were to open one of these up, which we are going to go into an actual live KC and do, I believe, next. So this is what the search screen looks like, a proposal number. You can search by any of these features. If you have a little magnifying glass, you can look up different sponsors.
And you'll notice that Robert used wildcards. Of course, you know how to spell your name, but you don't know how the system, it may have your last name, comma, first name, it may have your first name,
Yep.
space, last name.
Wildcards are always a good way to search. So here is what it looks like if you are searching by last name or something that, if you search by something that will have a lot of results. And then we're just going to go into one of these. Looks like I can show you what it looks like. So we'll choose this one. There's your PD number. New was approved and submitted. So Robert, open it up. And that's the main proposal screen. That's where we enter the basic information. The lead unit, so which department it is, the title, the deadline, date, sponsor, start date, things like that. And then there's some more information about the solicitation and just sub-awards, anything we might want to enter. Yes?
Where does it say it's funded or not?
Pardon me?
Where does it say whether it is funded?
So
That is a great
Oh,
question.
I
That's a
know.
great question. That is, we would see that on the Medusa tab by getting to the IP, by getting to the institutional proposal. And next week, we're having a follow-up seminar where we only talk about institutional proposals and the Medusa tab to dig into how do you go from the PD to whether it's funded and seeing the actual award documents. So we can show you that today, but just know we're going to spend a whole hour on that next week.
Well, Robert, we pulled it up here, if it look like, so this is the Medusa tab. This is where it links everything together. Roles you submit the institutional proposal that shows what's been funded or not, the award, the negotiation, different things that OSP does. Yes?
So this is an interesting one because this one was plussed up twice since the original PD.
Mhm.
Numbers don't look like it includes that at that point. When you drill into the Medusa tab, you'll actually see the amendments.
Correct. Yep. And yeah, you see multiple awards, so that would be your first funding and then your continuation funding. So here's where you can see all this stuff, and then if you click on the institutional proposal, is where it will say.
We have to go into it.
Define funding.
And it has an award, so it's definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we know this.
funded year. Status. Do you see the status as funded?
Yeah, there you go, thank you. So that's how you can tell through the Medusa tab, the institutional proposal. You could also search by institutional proposals from that main screen. You could also find funded information that way, but it will be on the Medusa tab. Everything's gonna be linked, the IP, the award on the Medusa tab. Yes.
So that's true of research
Mhm.
proposals, but for fee for service, for example,
It
that's
would show
Yes.
approved,
approved but not funded
correct,
for now.
for now.
For the moment.
Yes.
And can be output CVS or Excel file?
Yes, we can pull up your list of proposals or your list of institutional proposals by any search query. So we can pull it up by your department. We can pull up by an org code, by an account code, by a faculty member. We will get a list and then we can export that to Excel, a CSV file. Yes,
Yes.
that is
absolutely.
possible to do that.
And I can do it.
You can do that, yes.
Any other questions while we're in the Medusa tab here?
Would you like to see that?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, we
I
can
didn't
show
see
you
the
that.
map, but it said.
We're happy to show you that one-on-one later, but we can definitely do that.
So this is what the Medusa tab looks like. So you see your PD number and if it was awarded. And your institutional proposal number will show funded or approved if it's fee for service. And I'm going to hand it off to Andy unless there's any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Becca. As she said, I'm Andy Hazel. I work down in DER with Robert and David and Zeba. And I don't see Jackie hasn't snuck in the back, but she's pounded away. And Monique in the back who coordinated all of this and the food. So thanks again. I am going to talk about another aggregate reporting that you can do. So what Becca just showed you is you can go in and drill into a very specific PD. You can search by your title, your name, and you could get lists of proposals that you have out there. But this particular BI tool is available to all faculty. So hopefully, I know this was sent out in a memo in May of this year to department heads and the dean, and I trust that some of this information or all of it was forwarded. If not, you should be able to get into through EBS, through your portal, and there's a tile in there for the business intelligence tool. And that would take you directly to that link that you see up there that starts with the BI.IT services. So these reports are what I'm going to talk through, and this is tied to the faculty's annual Form D reporting. And so these reports are going to have both your proposals that you have submitted as well as those that have been awarded. So if you're just going to get one quick clean list, this might be the quickest way for you to jump in and see all of those aggregated. I just want to also note a couple of links that are here. Again, you can request this slide deck from us, but it's also available on the SBA CGA's website, OSP, CGA, same thing. You can get to those directions and frequently asked questions about how to run the report. I'm going to step through some very basic things about how to pick certain fields and query on your reports. But if you want some more details, you can go to those, or you can always come to DER, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we can help out. So the first one, when you run, so you've logged into EBS, you've clicked on the reports. This is the first thing that's going to come up, and you can see it's pretty simplistic. There's not too many levers for you to pull, but a date range that you can enter. Over here, note that there's external sponsors, internal, and all sponsors. Note that the internal sponsors are a work in progress, is my understanding within the data set, but you're certainly going to get all of your submissions to external sponsors. On the other side, there is, I'm going to show you an example of both, but under the select form type, there's a Form D official and a detailed, and I'll show the example of how to drill down. There's some additional detail as you expect on that. And then in the center, you can search for here, your name is probably the easiest way. And I just gave an example for Rama Mukamala. You don't have to spell out your full name, which I appreciated very much. I added Rama's name in there, and you can search. So let's take a look at the next slide, which has the example of this report. So once you inputted that range and the name, this is the detail that you're going to get. So you can see your project title, you have your co-investigators that are on that, obviously the department and whether it's been heard back that it's funded or pending. Again, this is the proposals report. So the awards are going to be in the next example. So these are just the proposals. You can read the rest of the sheets there, but key information like how much is there, what's your PI credit split, which we're going to spend some more time talking today on in detail. And then the next slide is the detail report. So in practice, you'd have to go back to that screen, click the little radio button that says the detail, and then this is what you're going to get. So a lot of the same information, but you get start and end date of your project, the durations. You get a little more information. They're pushing out some calculations of the weighted, and again, we're going to go into the detail, into the detailed example of how that FNA is calculated, the IDC return, and things like that. But this is the Form D proposals, both the summary report we showed, and this one's the detail. So let's go to the next one. Notice that we're now on the award screen, but this interface you're going to see is very common. In fact, I think you're going to see it across multiple as more reports are rolled out through the BI tool. I've seen this similar look and feel to different reports. So once you kind of get the hang of where the radio buttons are, I think this will become easier as you do this and other reporting. So same kind of thing, internal, external. There's an official Form D and a detailed. So I've searched for the name and set a date range, and then it's going to be a very similar looking report on the next slide. But these are only the ones that have been awarded. So you can drill down onto those. Again, this is part of that Form D process. I don't have detailed knowledge. Hopefully there's some faculty in the room that are nodding their heads like, okay, yeah, this is the information I use and need. If you're a new faculty and you haven't gone through that Form D, I think there is someone in the college that can help. You can certainly come to us that can help you get to that right person that understands and helps you through that processing.
So I'm a little confused. You said these are the proposals that are awarded, but why?
These should be the ones if we have the right
These
slide
are
up.
pending. If you look in that middle column.
And the bottom one says not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I tried that.
Yeah. These are the
Okay.
proposals that are awarded.
Did I go too far?
We may have labeled the reports wrong.
Oh, okay.
That,
So this is proposal submitted, go to the next one.
so it would typically
Proposals
say-
awarded, next one. So it looks like the wrong pick is in there. I
So it would
apologize
say
for
awarded.
that.
We
That
may
would
have
say
the
awarded.
wrong pick in the.
Yeah, that's my mistake, I apologize. The next detail report is the awarded, so let's take a look at that. So the look of that report will be the same, but you're only gonna have awarded. Too far, thanks. All right, this particular slide is the detailed one. I apologize to fit it on here and make it readable. You can see this is cut off, so it'd be even tough to even print this on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. But these are all of the fields that are included. And you start to on the second line, which would be, if you can imagine this next to, you're getting the full amount of the award total, obligated to date, and then more, again, of that detail of the credit split and unit split. So this is, these are the awarded proposals. This is only one. If there are multiple awarded, you know, it would be, for simplicity, I put one on the screen, but you would get a report of all of those awarded for that time frame. Any questions on either of these?
DER is happy to pull these reports for you. We have our data student in the back, Junhai, if you want to raise your hand. So she has exclusively been pulling all of our data for the last couple months, but you can pull these yourself, but if you need help, DER, we're happy to pull these for you.
Are these reports available all year? Or only
Yes.
during- Okay.
They're always available and they're always updated. They're not, they're connected to the CGA data, so they're not cut off at a certain point of the year.
And as like Kelly referenced, these are reports you can import into Excel as well.
Yes.
There's actually, I didn't do a screenshot of that, but as Becca mentioned, there's options to do PDF. I think there's even CSV text, so lots of different format options that's built into the BI tool for any report that comes out of that.
So maybe an important question for department staff especially is if errors are found in this any time of year, they can be submitted at any time.
Yes, if you find an error, please contact DER and we will work with CGA and OSP to get it corrected. It may be that the original proposal went in a different way than you planned. And so we can copy that proposal and do a new one with the new correct credit split. It could be that your PI profile changed and so it doesn't show the correct account. We can make sure that we pull in your correct PI profile and do a copy proposal. So whenever you find an error, you do not need to wait until the end of the year. Let us know. We actually prefer to fix the errors as they come up so they don't pile up and that we're trying to fix the errors at the same time you're trying to pull the data for your reports.
One more. Do you have to pull it by PI name or can you pull it by like order code?
Yes, there are, I think we can pull it by order code.
Okay, great.
It may be a different report with maybe a different name, but there are a number of filters. So yes,
Great.
we can pull it by order code.
Thank you.
Question, Nikki?
The engineering Form B system automatically pulls this in, so there isn't a need to necessarily pull it. from
Well,
the system.
so actually, I think you have to click a button, so
There you go.
you use
Well,
that. You
that
still have
was
to
the-
import from CGA.
Right,
So you have to ask it to do it.
correct. That's,
Faculty have to know how to do that.
Yeah,
but
so
it's not through this, it's just
Correct.
through the Form B
Correct,
system.
it's in Form B.
we're showing you this system because what we are hearing centrally is that these are the forms that they will be going towards. The standard, we are not telling you to make a change from what you're currently doing.
Well, we can't. Not possible.
That the CGA data goes into the FAIS system every night. So that data also should be updated as of the day before. But if you see an error in that system, also please let us know and it will get corrected and it will hit all the systems. Thanks.
All right, we're about to dive into overhead credit. Any other questions on reports that anyone has? Any coming in on Zoom? Any questions? Okay. All right, now we're going to talk about the money that comes back to you. Obviously, the research money is important to fund everything that you're doing, but I think of also important, I won't say equal, but IDC return. You'll hear it as F&A, overhead, indirect costs, and we're going to talk very much about details of how that money comes back and then how it's divided. So just a baseline, everyone I hope knows what the overhead costs are. They're currently 55% for most, not all. There are some agencies, the USDA, state of Michigan may have a lower amount, but I'm just going to, in general, you may hear me refer to it as the 55% or something like that, just using that general amount. There are agencies and foundations that are less. And accordingly, the IDC return is going to be based off that, that lesser amount. So again, the synonymous, I'll probably use IDC most often as I talk, but if I slip into some of these other words, FNA or overhead, please just, those are synonymous. 20% of that overhead, so 20% of that 55% of when you get your budget, and that's charged and you get your award, 20% is going to come back. And so I'm a visual person, so I envisioned back in the days before electronic that there perhaps was maybe a barge over there from across the river at VPRGS with maybe a nice chamber orchestra, and they put gold bars on, and they send it across the river. And that's the 20% that's going to come across. And then, of course, John perhaps is going to be there. Dean Kempel is going to send him to the river to collect our gold for engineering. But there's going to be some other parties that are involved there, and we'll talk about those.
One comment, because some folks here are in not just engineering, but joint with other colleges. Not all colleges.
We are going to get into that. Absolutely, yes. There are other colleges. So, perhaps Dave DeWitt's going to show up there and want some of his gold along with John's to spread around as well. And as you'll find out, not just John's going to show up, but Papa Palomero is probably going to show up and want some gold. So everyone who wants their gold is going to show up. All right, so here are the three things. I just tried to create a visual of things that feed into the IDC return. We have university and college rules that apply to everyone regardless of college you're in or department you're in. There's your PI profile that Kelly mentioned earlier, and that deals with your appointment. So if you're a dual appointed between, I don't know if you call dual appointed between departments, but if you're split between departments and or colleges, that's where the fun begins and kind of the matrix of weighted percentages. And we're going to look at some of that math fun as we get into this. We'll try to keep it simple. Probably don't need to with the audience here, but for simplicity. Also, we have proposal credit split. And this is what you put in as a faculty member would put in on each proposal. So they're negotiating that based on effort and based on the budget amounts for themselves and any co-PIs that they have on there, and they're dividing that proposal credit split. So you have university rules that always apply, you have your PI profile that's specific to each of the faculty on the proposal, and then you have a very proposal-specific split. And all those things are going to get mixed to determine who gets the gold. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next. This is just a visual of how that 20% comes across. So kind of the first person, if you want to visualize, and I put S in parentheses for the very thing that John mentioned, is there may be one or more colleges represented. So if there's only one, John's going to come up and take the 10% of the gold on behalf of the college. Maybe Dean Leo went over there and grabbed that on his own. But if John would pick that up. Now the departments is where it starts to get our first layer of complexity. So let's just take an example of Dr. Papapalomero, chair of ECE, if I'm remembering correctly. He's going to show up for, if it's an ECE proposal, and he's going to collect the 10%. But that's going to get further divided by the other departments that are involved, and there's a first cut of post-award. So of this 10%, 2.5 percentage points is going to immediately go to that post-award department. And that's to cover the, the management of that policy that's going to occur from within that post-award department. And then all departments.
What does that mean? Post-award department.
Post-award. So ECE, for example, I'm a pre-award person. So I work with the faculty on the pre-award. As soon as it's awarded and the funds are here, there's a post-award person in each of the departments that works on the account management and works with each of the faculty members in that department. That's the post-award. So do we have any post-award people here? Yes, so we've got some examples. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're the ones. And it's not like it's just paying their salary. There's a cost to post-award that is represented by that 2.5%. Okay? They're also going to get included in the all department spread. So they kind of get their first cut, they take their first cookie out of the cookie jar, and then they're going to come back and want a share of the remaining cookies as well.
So just to make it clear, the post-award piece is not to pay the post-award personnel directly. The post-award piece is to allocate additional funding to the department that is leading the post-award, because that's the biggest part of staff. It only really matters when there's more than one. If it was only one department, it would actually turn out that all of that 10% goes to the same pot.
Right, right. So for those on the Zoom, I don't know if I can summarize all that again, but just to clarify, because I did mention salaries is one, I don't know, whatever component of it. That is not what 25.5% it is. It is because that department is managing it, and the research is predominantly or 100% occurring in that department, and that's what that 2.5% goes back. And if there is only one, then that second chart you see with post-award in all departments it's a little bit irrelevant. It's just going to 100% of the 10%. It's going to be a lot more of that, so get used to it. 100% of that 10% would go to that one department. All right, thanks, John. So let's take a look at, dig down into this a little bit deeper. Oh, I wanted to jump and point out, this was covered in the KC training last week, I think, or seminar. This is where the faculty, when you do the PPF, you hit the magic green button, you've entered all the title and all the information. You're going to enter yourself as a faculty person and the overhead credit percent. This is what I mean by proposal credit split. So if you're the only one on there, you put 100%, easy, money's easier to divide that way. But if you're collaborating with another faculty here on campus, whether it's in the same department or a different college, you're going to add additional personnel and then split that out equaling to 100. So that's the proposal credit split.
So maybe an important reason for explaining why we do this. This is how we determine, for example, in merits and also in the reappointment, promotion, and tenure processes, how much of the effort of this particular project was performed by each of the PIs. There can also be key persons on the project. Key persons don't get any credit split. So each of those are tools to determine how much effort is going in by each person. So it's very important to pay attention to setting that to the appropriate levels for the actual effort, because that's used in the nature of career path.
So hopefully those on the Zoom heard that. If not, we actually have a slide that will reiterate that again, but it's just the importance of those that are working on that project are getting the appropriate credit. And it can vary by co-investigator or key person. A key person is added without overhead credit. All right, let's dive into this. Oh, look, we have John Bravancores as an example. And this is, I chose yours, John, because it was a nice example of the split that we were just referring to. So this is the PI profile here, these bottom lines. And the proposal credit is at 75%. That 75 would have come from that prior screen I just showed you when you're submitting your PPF or proposal processing form. This example of ECE, CMSE, notice that CMSE is split between engineering and College of Natural Science. So that's when we get an additional dean showing up at the river for their goal, is because this divide here. So they're going to want a piece of that IDC as they are participating because of this is set at the appointment of the faculty. I believe it's actually in the appointment letter, if I'm correct. And that's one of the reasons why that if you're brand new and not added to the system yet, one of us in DER may ask the department could we have that appointment letter so we can get the accurate salary as well as the correct credit split and make sure we get that set. Yes, question?
The MAM form, which you asked us to find
Okay. Ma'am, does it?
It's typically in the letter, but the MAM lays it out exactly percentages and what price.
Okay. Does that stand for something?
It's a multiple appointment memorandum,
But it's
Multiple-
only,
to the hire.
it's only in paper.
But DER does not have access to that. So
Right.
if you are in the system and you see that your PI profile is not correct, please contact DER and we can get it fixed in the system immediately. So we do not have access to those, so we would not immediately know that it's different. Now the system is connected to HR, and so it will default to HR information. But we have noticed some things, people who have multiple profiles, if we have undefaulted the HR profile and created a new one, it may make the HR profile not the default, so those changes may not flow smoothly. So if you have a change, it's always best to look in the system and double check with HR, or double check with DER.
So some other important aspects, this is locked into a particular project activity at proposal time. And so if your appointment changes a day later after this is submitted, it doesn't matter. This is what takes effect. You can go back and change it manually, but you have to take action to do it. It doesn't automatically update as your appointments evolve.
So that's an important distinction for those that are on the Zoom, if I can repeat that. What you see on the screen is John's appointment and credit split, our PI profile today. And so if this proposal, this hypothetical proposal is processed today, that will go with the proposal even if tomorrow John's credit split or PI profile changes. So it's locked in and circle back.
So that's a change in your appointment configuration is one reason to do a proposal modification. But another reason might be, for example, if this particular character had triplets and had to take 3 months off, and therefore wasn't able to do the full 75%, that might get moved over to someone else, and so on. So you might have to move the percentage around for other reasons than just the point.
Are you wanting?
Is there an announcement about upcoming triplets that's going to be made?
I'd love to have triplets.
Okay, just
We disagree.
Yes, would it be helpful when we know that there's a change in a faculty member's percent time and we have a new MAM that's going to be attached to a change of status or a cost redistribution? Would it be helpful to send that to you automatically so you could take care of updating that faculty member?
That would be helpful. Yes, that would be great. So what we're doing in the absence of that is we're sending you by department your PI profiles once or twice a year for you to review them. But if you'd like to send them to us when you have one, then we can definitely look at it, change it in the system, and see if there are outstanding awards that need to be changed.
Yeah, especially like for current faculty on campus who are in other locations and are moving portions of their time to different departments.
Because it will affect the F&A return and the research expenditures.
And so PI should care because this is money that goes to your department that your chair uses as discretionary money to do things like cost share or buy you a new laptop or anything like that. So those are really important to your department.
All right, well, we're finally to an example. And I've obviously made up these individuals. We have a PI that has 60% of the effort on this. Jenny Appleseed is from ECE. She is just based in one department. We have Jill Johnson as a co-I. She's also in ECE, 70%, mechanical engineering, 30%. And then John Doe came along to complicate things a little bit, just for our example. CMSE, but split between College of Natural Science and engineering 50-50.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry? You're CMSE? All right, well, thanks for coming. You can clarify if I mess any of that up. This particular example I just picked, in hindsight, after I'd done it, I wish they picked a nice round number, but I didn't. I just picked one of the proposals I was working on. So 1,557,392 created the IDC of 345,385. That's just a standard 55%. So we're going to take a look at how are we going to divide this up amongst what we have here are
Andy, before you go on, it's worth pointing out that the math is not 55%, but that's because there are some things going through IDC.
Correct. There's modified total.
Your math is not bad.
For all those in the room that can't help themselves and they do math in their head before they blink, yes, that's not 55% because of things like tuition, equipment, that 55%. So there's modified total direct cost that then the 55% applies to. And subawards, yes, yeah, those are the first 25,000. Yeah, well, all right, well into the weeds, but thank you for pointing it out because it clearly would not, you'd think my math was off. All right, let's take a look, jump into the next slide. All right, so I did first a grid. There's going to be two slides here. First, we're going to do how the college is divided up. I could have put it all on one, but I thought this would be a little more clear. So we've got the two colleges involved here at College of Engineering. The pieces that come together are the PI profile and the credit split. We've already done the university rule is really done at the top. So I've taken 10% of that 345,000 IDC return, and that's really the university rule. And then within this table are the PI profile and the credit split. And it's just a simple multiplication or weighting of these percentages that basically gets the share of college IDC credit here in the second to last column. So 90% going to College of Engineering and 10% down here to College of Natural Science, and then the dollars are there, adding back up to the 34,000. So it seems a little messy, but it's pretty straightforward. I'm not planning on going into this grid anymore, but if you have questions, it's basically just multiplying weighted averages of the percentages involved, getting to the 90%, 90-10, and splitting the money. Any questions on that before we dive into how the departments are done? Any Zoom questions? All right, let's jump into the next one. Easy crowd. Now we take the IDC, same 34,000 because it's 10%. And this is what I was referring to earlier. Remember the Sparty graph with the 10% and 10%, and then that pullout of 2.5% and 7%. That's represented here in the first, second, and third black line. So the post-award department in this case is Jennings, the ECE. They're going to take 2.5 percentage points, if you will, of that 10%. So 25%, if you want to do that, do it that way. 25% of the 34,000 gets you to the 8,600 and some change. And then the remaining is shared by all departments, the 25,904. So really this bottom half table is splitting up that 25,000. So the departments involved, again, it's just the weighting of those PI profile and credit split that we showed earlier. So 100% and 60% is still 60, 70 and 20 gets you to 14%, and then done the math. So all of ECE, which was represented by both Jenny and Jill, is going to be the 19,169. So that total for ECE is at 19,000. Now notice, ECE is getting that 19,000 plus the 86 up there, because they have, by far the bulk of the effort based on both the PI profile and the proposal credit split on this proposal. Then the last two pieces are going to be divided between mechanical and engineering. And again, this is still Jill, but it's her piece of the mechanical engineering of the 30%, 20% gets us to 6%, so $1,500 on top of John's CMSE. Even though this is split between the colleges, in this case, this is the department piece. We've already done the college split on the prior screen. So John's department kind of contribution or IDC return is at $5,181. Easy peasy. Any questions? All right. This is getting a little bit more to John's comment earlier of how might this be used, and when we look at cost share. I have made up another example here, and I just want to emphasize. I think Kelly might have mentioned this a little earlier, but reiterate this point. In general, the things should correlate. So as a faculty member, when you're looking at the effort on a proposal and you're determining what that proposal, that credit split should be, it should correlate. It's not one-to-one exact, but it should correlate to the level of effort that you and your co-PIs are putting into that. And it should also correlate to the actual budget dollars. So we don't typically see those differences, but you as a faculty know what they are. If these two grad students are being managed by the PI and another grad student is being managed by a co-PI, and there might be supplies that are divided. So as you look at that distribution, that should roughly correspond to how you're dividing up. Not always, but should correspond to the effort as well as that credit split. So when we look at this example, I've just made this 20% cost share on this same proposal. Is going to generate that $389,000. You've got friends across the river that you talked into picking up a half because they see this as strategic work and this is good for the university. So $194,000 of that picked up by BPRGS. So then you go and you're kind of negotiating with the different colleges involved here. And I didn't do the example one layer lower, but we would actually want to look at, and DER can help create the spreadsheet for you and divide it up. We're looking at what the divide is by the departments, because that proportion should match. Shouldn't have, in this case, say College of Natural Science, IDC share is only 10% versus engineering, and I did it exact, right? So I think John would be very happy. This is a very fair divide based on the IDC share. The cost share is being borne mostly by College of Engineering, and then Natural Science kicking in. So this could go wrong in a couple of ways. One, for whatever reason, Natural Science either isn't or wasn't asked to contribute anything. That would be a question. So somebody in DER might question that back to make sure. Like, hey, we see that there's another party here, another college. Why are they not contributing to this cost share in proportion to their participation? And the other comparison that is done, and maybe John can speak to this a little bit, is how much money is coming back to the college through the IDC return and to a department, and then how much is the department and, or in this case, a college being asked to contribute. And I don't know as far as the judgment goes into that. I mean, this particular is an arbitrary example. They're not very even. Obviously, there's a lot more being given for this amount of IDC return. I would just presume that there'd have to be something other very strategic about this potential award that you might make the decision. John, I don't know if you want to add to some of the decision-making that goes or how you look at these numbers.
Yeah, so really it's a case-by-case basis on cost share. So large numbers like that would cause you to think carefully about where the money comes from. When the money is covered by the IDC return, it's a lot easier decision. There are many ways we can modify these numbers instead of producing cash cost share. We may go back and ask departments to put in a Y cost share, and that's a way to make numbers more rational so that they can actually fit within real budgets. Not all agencies understand that reality, so they think things are from the university are free. They're not. So we have to actually manage these budgets evenly.
One more point about cost share. We have had the question from faculty. For some of these large cost share amounts, your IDC return is based on the spending. So if you spend less in a given year, your IDC return is also going to be less. So the question we get from the faculty or the departments is, I committed to this amount of cost share, however, my IDC is less than I expected. So can I forget the cost share part? Can I change my cost share contribution? In general, we say no. That the cost share is a commitment at the beginning, and the IDC return is our best estimate of how you have given us information in the budget to spend. But there have been circumstances where the cost share was a certain level and the spending came in less, and the department did not get the IDC return they expected in a given year.
So federally speaking, the cost share we owe in a given year is directly correlated to the actual expenditures. So if you're rolling over 100K of the budget to the next year, you don't necessarily have a requirement to produce that cost share until you've actually done the expenditure.
Yes.
So you could defer cost share with expenditures.
All right, I think we just have a few more slides. This is just to reiterate why this is so important. So I think some of these, have been mentioned. This is going to come back into your department. In some cases, I didn't mention that on one of the slides, departments differ. So I didn't go into those details, but different departments will kind of share these monies with their faculty in different ways. I mean, it's all for the greater good of the department, but sometimes it's individually returned to an account, is my understanding. But that depends on your department and working with your particular department chair. This was also mentioned, this influences tenure review, your RPT, that reappointment, promotion and tenure. That actually, I believe, we're right in the middle of right now. So again, to read why this is so important.
So maybe a good thing to address is as a junior PI particularly, if you feel like you're not being offered the credit you deserve, what do you do about it? Well, first, of course, talk to your co-PIs and make your case. If you feel like that's not providing justice, then talk to your chair. If you feel like that's still not providing justice, then come and talk to your research team. In engineering, that'd be me, and that side would be Dave Witt, and for BAE folks, that would be George Smith. So depending on what the situation is, we will try to help.
So just to reiterate for those on the Zoom, if you're a new faculty and you don't think you're going to kind of getting your fair shake on your credit split, first, work it out person to person with your PI and try to work through it there. Otherwise, kind of go through that chain to reach out to your department chair. And eventually, if you need to, reach out to John directly, your research dean. If you're in a different college, reach out to your particular research dean.
So one recommendation you did not hear there was ask DR to make the decision for you. The best they can possibly do is take out the Cleaver and play Sullivan.
Which we don't do. We're much, maybe not as wise, but we're kinder than that.
In a department, we have many junior faculty, and I can tell you that this is a problem.
And
Okay.
frankly, it's really more a mentoring issue. They need to understand the reasons and why it's done the way it is. And I think if you do that in a positive way, you can get a much more positive result.
I even think sometimes faculty don't understand the whole IMC credit and all of that until you start talking about RPT. That gets.
And it hits home.
When it now affects your reappointment and your possibility for tenure could possibly affect it. That gets them when they start thinking about it. But it is, I can tell you it is a problem.
Okay, well, thanks.
Just once or twice a year either.
All right, so this is just the plug from your, I guess, your pre-award folks on behalf of the post-award. Please, save yourself the hassle, figure out this credit split ahead of time, especially before that award and the accounts are all set up. There is some cleanup that we can do before then. Just did one myself a couple weeks ago. It's not too bad. We can change that, but please, if you see something that's wrong or you think it's wrong, see something, say something, speak up, and we'll get that taken care of. Sorry to hijack that saying, but and get the credit you deserve. I mean, that's the key here. Everybody is working hard on their research and doing their part, so get the credit you deserve. So the next thing I want to hit, this is the last subject for today. I see we're almost up to time, is the Faculty Activity Information System. I think this was referred to earlier. Again, this is the October process, and this just lays out, and I'll talk through this very quickly. The OPB, Office of Planning and Budget, provides that file to DER. We go through a process of massaging, fixing, cleaning out, scrubbing data. This contains the activity and expenditures for the fiscal year, and this is a key distinction. I think Kelly alluded to this earlier, is it is based on the expenditures for the year. So not, you might look at some of the other reports, great reports that we showed earlier. Those are total awards. They span multiple years.
What's the fiscal year?
The fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. Yes, okay. The question was, what was the fiscal year? Just for those on the Zoom that are currently laughing at me. All right. So we've done that process. Another key process is sending this to the individual departments. And there's additional. This is another chance for you to take a look at it. Are there any issues? Are there problems? I mean, we don't like issues to come up with credit split, like, hey, this is wrong, but sometimes they do. Sometimes there's a valid reason. Sometimes it's not really a valid reason, other than I don't think that was fair and I think it should change. But there are problems. There are things we do need to clean up. So if you see something, let us know. We'll see what we can do in the departments to fix it. Once that cleaned up and checked data is done in the departments, it comes back to DER. We provide it to DEX here in the College of Engineering, actually part of IT services now, but they put it into this FAIS system. We're going to take a look at just a few screens. This is an example of what we would see. Actually, I think what maybe Kelly would see is the director of DER. You may have some additionals. This is the login screen for that link here to get into FAIS. As faculty, you probably have some additional options and features, but this is the gist of what you can get into and look at. And let's take a look at a couple of other screens. All right, so this is the detailed report, and we used John's detail here, and this is showing both federal and industry. As my understanding is, they're currently working on incorporating internal funded reports, or funded like an SPG or something, DFIs and things like that. But I believe they would show up under a different federal type. I just don't have that example here. So apparently John hasn't had any of those awarded. If he has, they're not showing up.
What do you mean, industry awards?
Non-industry, so internal, like an SPG or a DFI.
Yes, they do have SPG, and it's not showing.
It's not showing up. So proof that this has not incorporated those, but hopefully will soon. Again, this is the detailed. You can see the accounts, your funding source and sponsor, your credit split, and this is literally, so when we talk about the monies that were spent, so the literal research expenditures spent in the fiscal year, then those are those numbers. So you're not going to get exact matches if you try to go back and tie them, unless if you run the course of your proposal, you're going to have to account for time. Notice also it says academic year at the top, but as we mentioned earlier in a prior, this particular system, this FAIS report is fiscal year.
And just like the federal government, we call it fiscal year 17 when it ends 17.
Yes.
So you can see the 2016 to 17, and we've selected a fiscal year 2017 at the top. That's the point John's making. It's when the fiscal year ends that we give the name. All right, any questions on that one? I think there's just one more report view of this, and as I understand, these are made up numbers right now, so don't react to it, John.
They might be right.
They might be right. Well, there's
Sans the SPG there, right? There's a risk about that.
right. So they are currently working on the numbers here, but this will be a nice just summary report. Just give me the numbers. Let me know what my research expenditures are, and this is one that's currently in progress. It's created, but the numbers aren't quite fully baked.
So the big plug here is that this is the RPT report the DER currently compiles for you and sends out to you. You include in your RPT package, and this will soon be in FAIS.
And so for those of you who are going through our PT actions, you can see this particular person almost wouldn't have made it except the last bump up at the end. So don't have to bump down at the end.
It's in reverse order. I was looking at like, man, it's going down. This is not good, John. But yeah, going up this way. So most recent fiscal year first. All right, any questions? I think we are at an end. I'm going to introduce Monique. I just want to say Monique is one of our students, an outstanding job, and she does all the arrangements here, and she's just going to make a quick plug for our next seminars.
Thank you for the introduction, Andy. Yeah, so I just wanted to promote our next 2 seminars. They're going to be the next 2 Wednesdays. So next week we are talking more about Medusa, Tab, and Casey and really digging into that. And then the following week we have Dan Siegelman coming in to talk about export control. So make sure that you are here for those seminars. Have something to say? Okay. So here's some of the ones we've done here and then the ones coming up. If you do want any of this information, we have it all on DER's website. So if you go on the side tab, it says seminar series. If you click on that, you'll get links to the PowerPoints and make sure you have all the information on that. And then here's our lovely staff. So hopefully you've been able to meet everyone and seen our faces at these meetings. And here's our contact information. So if you want to reach out to any of us, feel free. My email is here. If you have any questions or want like the PowerPoints individually, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
We made it 2 minutes to spare you. Any questions? Was there any questions? Are you looking at
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
If the faculty is majority, still on that.